Disclaimer, warning, the content will examine phenomena that some would find offensive, inappropriate, insensitive and triggering. This content neither suggests, nor implies, medical, or any other professional advice. This is a light-hearted discussion of a comedian and his therapist friend engaged in hypothetical conversation on Black mental health and race. In no way are the following views and content associated, or affiliated, with this, or any other, platform that this podcast may be accessed. All information and opinion are independent expression of free speech that a reasonable person may freely consider adapting or opposing in their own paradigm.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers.
Peace to God.
Peace to the universe. What's going on?
Life, black man, life.
Yes, sir. Understood. We had a 2-week break. I was finally catching up on all of the episodes. I appreciate your patience while I got all of these episodes edited. I really don't edit them that much, but what I do is to put together like a synopsis or a summary of what we're talking about for people that would prefer to read about topics and skip over certain topics or go focus on something that's in the 1 hour or 2 hour we have together. I appreciate your patience, brother, and I appreciate your presence each and every week that we are here. You're listening to Black Mental Health and Race. I am your host, MF Doug, AF, and my co-host is Dr. Moore. Welcome back, Dr. Moore.
Peace to the gods and the earth.
Indeed. Peace to the universe. P. Diddy has made the news, brother. Any reaction to said anything that you heard or a reaction to just anything dealing with P. Diddy?
No, not really, bro. There's a lot of gossip that's going on around and about him, and I really don't know what is or isn't. I'm not remotely close to his camp, or nor do I spend a significant amount of time on social media following that story. So there used to be something my kids used to call a hop on, and I used to say, well, "What's a hop on?" or hop on or hopper, and it's basically, you just kind of bandwagon, you just kind of hopping on, what everybody else is doing or saying, and I definitely don't see myself as a hopper. So, I think, with Diddy, I don't know, man. That is, I don't really know. I don't really care. I think that I saw something on the news with helicopters and planes or whatever going to his house, had his kids in handcuffs. And to my knowledge, they didn't come out with anything. So I don't know anything and I don't believe anything. So whatever that means.
It's very interesting, brother, because I think P. Diddy doesn't affect our everyday life, but it's interesting that what has come about. Someone said to me, the culture is rich, Black culture. I'm speaking of referencing to, and somehow that black culture is fostering or nurturing a criminal element. Now, I don't want to call P. Diddy a criminal. However, I do want to say that whoever is in the business of the things that he's alleged to have done would be considered a criminal. And I've got mixed feelings because I have a lot of respect for him as a business person and as a talent. But if I am keeping true to myself, um, in terms of my mm, my, my being outspoken about criminality in the black community, I would have to probably distance myself from Diddy like I would do for what I said about R. Kelly or what I said about Brother Polite or any of the other miscreants that are out there. What I do know is that some of these allegations are not even for Diddy, but for his son. Uh, I wonder if you'd have a different reaction to his son now being implicated in this new Homeland Security investigation of the Combs family.
Well, I don't know anything about his son being implicated. Um, you know, I don't know if that's alleged. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's not true. I don't know. So I don't want to feed the gossip mill about his son. I don't know what his son has done, not done. I don't know anything about his son. I don't even know anything about Diddy. You know, and in light of what you said, regarding other people, I don't really know. Like, I don't have to distance myself from Diddy because I'm not close to him. Right? It's not like I listen to his music. It's not like I follow him on Instagram or social media. I don't know Brother Polite. I don't know any of these people. I don't follow them on social media. I don't know them in any regard. So they don't really impact my life, at all. Um, as it relates to the culture, um, I think I see myself in a different light than people who talk about the culture in a way that they inject themselves or feel involved or want to feel involved. I'm not one of those people. I may be a part of the culture by default because I'm black, but I'm sure not a part of the culture because I follow um, the culture in social media or hip hop or whatever. I'm not one of those. Um, I don't make any money off of the culture or anything like that. So you know, um, so I don't, I don't really have any. Uh, I don't know. I don't really have a lot of valid input um, in terms of what he is alleged has done or hasn't done. I think I would probably have more feedback if he's found guilty, of a crime or something like that, or his son, and maybe I could speak to the crime issue of it or the mental health issue of it. But right now, um, I think the only mental health issue that I have about it is people's obsession about
Hmm. Excellent, brother. Because tonight we want to get into those obsessions and how those obsessions somehow become people's identity. Um, like for myself, I always try to bring it back to myself. Um, I've always had, as I've developed in life and matured, because I used to be a part of the criminality, but as I matured, I've seen how detrimental it could be to the community as a whole, the black community I'm speaking of. And I find myself now more identifying with the crime fighter like Batman than I was like the outlaw with like Tupac. We had a glorification of being the outlaw on the outskirts of law with our interest in people like Tupac, or interest in people like the Black Panthers, or interest in rebels like Dr. Khaled. There was something about this revolutionary spirit, this militant black spirit that I had that has somehow matured into now being, at least on the surface, more so towards law enforcement than it is towards being an outlaw. Did I explain myself correctly? And how do you feel about that as a therapist if I were to have that conversation with you
In terms of being an outlaw as opposed to,
versus being a crime fighter?
I think both of those seem ideological, right? Kind of in the sense that, you know, you're just kind of placing yourself in those roles, right? You're identifying as a crime fighter, right?
Hmm.
Um, as a crime fighter, as opposed to what was the other one? Um,
Outlaw.
Outlaw. I would
Thug,
be,
thug like baby.
yeah. So I would be interested in like asking you what's the motivational factor in you um self-identifying as that, as one of those people. What is fulfilling about that for you, and why, um how does that benefit or support your life?
Hmm. That's a good question, bro. I think I got to see how helpless I was when that thug life or that criminal um, interest I had could not help me with people in my own family. When things in my own family had been somehow affected by the streets, I really didn't have no help, and I really couldn't even depend on help from the law enforcement agencies. I just had to try to figure out on my own how to get out of situations that I was I put myself in, or that a family member had put themselves in. And I think the way that it develops into crime fighting or into that Batman mentality is that I needed to protect my family. Does any of that make sense to you, brother?
Hold
And
on
is
one
that
second.
an obsession?
um let me be clear, I understand what you're saying. You say that you kind of navigated that way because of your inability to do things to defend yourself or family, or that your family put you in situations like that.
It it was like if someone came to me and said, "I need help with so and so," and I'm like, "Okay, we can't go to the law enforcement to get help," and I just had to deal with what they were telling me. I couldn't react, and I felt so powerless. And I think like the superhero character, and we're not superheroes, is to put that out into the universe. But the story of Batman being helpless, watching his parents die right in front of him because of a crime, somebody trying to rob him. Even though that's a fictional story, it was his motivation for becoming who he became. He became obsessed with his powerlessness and his fear as a little child to be able to help his parents. He was in no position of power to help them. Um, so tonight, this is Black Mental Health and Race. We're talking about obsessions that grow in us, and we're talking about P Diddy, but not in the sense of being accusatory towards him, but how do we think and how do we become a person that's for P. Diddy or for R. Kelly or a person that's against him?
Or a
Did
person
that
that's
make sense?
or I think for me, or a person that becomes obsessed with their lifestyle and what's happening.
Or in your case, as a person that's like saying that's not important to me,
Yeah, so I'm
which I
more.
think is the strongest position to take no sides and not to be interested in that stuff.
Well, so my concern or my question would be, what would be one's obsession with that, right?
Well,
I mean,
like with R. Kelly, I wanted to see that motherfucker go to jail because the women I identified with the women that were underage and in his care, and he abused. And I don't have to say allegedly because he was convicted of that. Whether he did it or not is another story. But this is what R. Kelly was convicted of. I refused to listen to any more songs by R. Kelly, and I would look at everybody sideways if they tap their feet to a R. Kelly song.
well, then you better
But
not go to Chicago, because I can tell you right now that Chicagoans don't feel that way. And if you go to Chicago, they are
those
jamming to R.
Chicago
Kelly.
niggas showed up at the Brooklyn Federal Court to support him. Like you backwards, crazy motherfuckers.
Well, maybe you can say that, but if you say that, you can't say that anymore. You can say that for people that support Trump.
This is true. And we're going to get into the former President Trump in a little while. But I think what we're talking about here tonight is identity. Not only the identities of the people who are being accused of something wrongdoing, but who we become, whether we're for or against or um, neutral when it comes to these people that make the news, like Rump and Diddy, R. Kelly, and whoever else is out in the news. One big name comes to mind, Netanyahu. I think this fool is a war criminal and should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. We're jumping all over the place tonight, brother, but I got through half of the minister's speech, and he went into an accusatory mode for the state of Israel and the war crimes that they're committing because they just had a convoy. During periods of war, there's a neutral path with even innocent people on both sides could get fed, and you just want to kill the soldiers. You don't want to kill the people. If you understand how the war works, there is a sense of humanity in the whole inhumanity of war. But there are people passionate with an obsession to kill people. And I think this president of Israel is one of them. And he has a whole cabinet behind him that is backing him up on this. But they accidentally killed one of the suppliers of food and medical supplies, one of the convoys that was not part of the war. And they said, oh, we made a mistake. But now President Biden is saying, um, you went across the line. We have to draw a line in the sand on what you're capable of doing and still get America's support. Any comment on that?
Nope. The only comment I have about
You don't care.
uh, well, I don't feel like they care about us. So
Hmm.
I'm mindful to be taking on these strong convictions about Israel and Palestine, and I never hear Israel or Palestine take on any convictions about the black community. So
Hmm.
for me as a black person to sit here and be very passionate about what's happening with Palestine, Israel, right? And never hear Israel or Palestine, neither one of them talk about their concerns about what's happening in the black community. And so it's always a thing for me, for black people to delegate themselves to everybody else's cause. And nobody delegates themselves to black people's cause. So it's
Hmm.
like, it's something about black people that they're so compassionate about everybody else, right? Except for black folks, right? And so, you talk to black people, they're crying, they're spilling over about every other race. It could be, I don't care if it's Palestine, Israel, LGBTQ, RS, whatever. All these other issues that's happening in the world. Dogs, cats, animals, everything. Black people are you can find pockets of black folks that have remorse and all this stuff for all these other groups of people. But when it comes to black folks ain't even there for black
No
folks.
compassion for us, no nothing.
And black folks themselves don't have that same compassion for black folks. So I'm not gonna sit here on this podcast and spill my heart out. Not that I don't have compassion, but I'm just saying, I want to be careful and mindful of how I distribute, that type of pouring out, you know, not knowing that it's not going to be reciprocated.
Exactly. I'll give you an example, brother. Um, there is a female police officer. Her name is Amber Geiger. Are you familiar with who she is?
Yeah.
Okay. For the audience, it's a person that Amber Geiger is the person that went into somebody else's apartment and killed them because she thought it was an intruder in her own apartment. She lived on the third floor. I believe this is in Dallas, Texas, if I'm not mistaken, brother. Um, and she lives on the third floor. The victim in question lived on the fourth floor. She got out of the elevator. She was texting her then boyfriend or person of interest that she was romantically involved in. And she noticed that when she put her key in the door was already ajar, slightly open. So her being a police officer, she pulled out her and began to the spot. And she saw a black man just sitting there on the couch and told him to put his hands up. And for some reason, he tried to say, no, 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 no. And according to her story, she came, he came towards her and she shot and killed him. And she tried to give him uh, mouth to mouth resuscitation, but it was too late, and the man died mistakenly believed to be an intruder into her apartment. Um, so that was the big story. But here's the after story. When we talk about having compassion for people, the brother of the man she killed, she was found guilty. Amber Geiger is now serving a 20-year sentence for having killed a man. She was a police officer, and now she's a convict. She is serving a 20-year sentence. But the big story here, brother, is well, not the big story, the side story is that she um, was going through the sentencing phase of her conviction. And the brother of the man she killed got on the stand for the sentencing phase. You know how the judge always allows the family uh, victim impact statement. You know that this man asked to hug her and that he did not want to see her go to jail. And she hugged him. The judge allowed the two of them to hug just to show a demonstration of compassion. He is like an extreme example of that. I just wanted your reaction to it as a therapist. Where's his
Well,
mind?
I'm not gonna respond to that
Right,
as a
not that.
therapist. No.
Right.
Just hear me out. Hear me out. I don't want to respond to that as a therapist. I want to respond to that without a therapist hat on, right? So my response to that without a therapist hat on is that's some nigga shit. That's some nigga shit. And I'm gonna tell you why I say that's some nigga shit. And this is why I don't want to make it therapeutic. And this is why I didn't want to respond from a therapeutic perspective, because from a therapeutic perspective, I would have to say something different. But with responding without a therapeutic perspective, I would say that's some nigga shit, right? And to me, it is the epitome of what Malcolm X called the difference between a house nigga and a field nigga, right? And that is some house nigga shit. And Malcolm said that the difference between a house nigga and a field nigga is when the masses house caught on fire, the field nigga prayed for a wind to burn that shit down, right? The house nigga said, "Oh, we house." Malcolm said the difference between the house nigga and the field nigga is when the master got sick, the house nigga said, "We sick," right? Where the field nigga prayed for death. So
It's extraordinary. I don't know if this is possible, but can I give her a hug, please? Please? Botham's 18-year-old brother, who asked to make a victim impact statement. I know. I can speak for myself. I forgive you. After forgiving Geiger, he makes one more remarkable gesture. I don't know if this is possible, but can I give her a hug, please? Please? Yes. Geiger was ultimately sentenced to 10 years in prison, but will be eligible for release live. Joining us now is the brother of Botham John, Grant John. Joining us now is the brother of Botham John, Grant John. Thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. Take me, if you can, in your mindset for a moment. When you arrived in court that day, how were you feeling about her? That day,
a house nigga in this sense would say, "Oh, let me hug, you know, the slave master, for he or she know not what she do. You know, please don't hurt my master." Not only did this nigga want a hug, but the judge in this case gave this lady a Bible. So these house Negroes, when it comes to their slave master, you know, have a different demeanor when it comes to their slave master and how they should respond to them. So there's nothing therapeutic that I have to say about that, because I don't see that as therapeutic. I see that as some house nigga shit.
There's a word for that, brother. Not your personal opinion, but for therapists, they have what is it called? Affirmative, a responsibility for affirmative something. What the hell is the word? It'll come back to me. Something about affirming therapy, where you as a therapist have to show compassion for a person's belief.
And that's why
the belief aspect of it. So I'm gonna let you respond to that. Go ahead.
No, that's why I didn't want to respond to that in a therapeutic way. If I was a therapist, then that would be different, because I would have to have some type of empathy, for that person, right? And I would have to have some type of empathy in understanding why they're doing what they're doing from a therapeutic or psychological perspective, right? And I can understand in that sense, or this person has a big heart or whatever. But from a historical perspective, I know I, understand, um, the psychological dysfunction of that, right? Because
would describe.
Because if the shoe were on the other foot, if a black officer walked into a female's house and killed a innocent white female, I mean, if I looked at it from a historical content, there were black people. I mean, Emmett Till was murdered for something less than that. And historically,
to this day, and to her death, that she had, she finally confessed that on her deathbed that this guy Emmett Till did nothing to her. That she made up a lie because she knew that her boyfriend or husband at the time would not accept anything less than a reason to go after Emmett Till.
Right. I don't care if he did whistle at her. It was not worthy of his death.
That is correct.
And historically, white women have had a history of lying on black men and having them murdered as a result of it. There was something that was called, by law, reckless eyeballing. You couldn't look a white person in the eye because it was against the law.
You walk on the same side of the street. You had to cross over.
But you could be charged for looking at white people.
That's
and the charge was called reckless eyeballing.
That is correct.
So
this wasn't the 1800s, 1700s, 1500s. This was in the 50s and 60s, 70s. Anything after the Reconstruction era, which would be 1868, is the end of the Civil War. Anytime after that, that Reconstruction period, they came up with these laws for black people had a second class citizenship in America all the way up into the 60s, and we started fighting for civil rights. The name of that therapy, you're listening to Black Mental Health and Race. I am your host, MF Doug, AF, and my co host is Dr. Moore. The name of that therapy is called Affirming Cognitive Behavior Therapy, meaning that if a person says that I'm this and I'm that, you as a therapist have to keep your professional conduct and affirm who they say they are. But we were talking about belief.
But
I'm
let
gonna
me
let you
just say,
explain that in a minute, but I wanted to add on to the segment in terms of what you said about belief and about the things that we know and the things that we believe and how they're different. Go ahead, continue, Dr. Moore.
yeah, I just want to say, when you say things like affirmative therapy, a therapist is not required to adhere to that if that's not what they practice, right? So unless you unless you say that this falls under your umbrella of expertise, then you don't practice affirmative therapy, right? If you don't follow Carl Rogers and you don't practice, Rogerian therapy, then you can't demonstrate that, right? If you're not a Freudian, then you don't practice psychodynamic or psychoanalytic therapy. So I'm just saying to speaking to what you were saying about affirmative therapy, there are a lot of different forms of therapy out there. But if that's not what you practice, it doesn't mean a whole lot, occur a whole lot, unless you're saying this is what you practice. So regardless of, what happens, this is the technique that you use.
Hmm.
It's just like
if
if you are an eye doctor, you can't pull somebody's tooth. You have a specialty and you have a particular technique that you might practice because that's your specialty, right? But when it comes to therapy, there's a lot of different forms of therapy, right? And if you're not skilled in that form, you don't practice that, or you don't utilize it.
But
so I'm just saying that to say that I don't want anybody to feel like that all therapists are required to respond and demonstrate in that way.
That and I thank you for that clarification. Because I do know that there were things that were a part of the diagnostic manual. I'll let you explain what the diagnostic manual is. That were considered mental health illness up until like the 70s and 80s. That now a part of this affirming or alignment with the patient, they don't have to have, as you just explained, but they have to have some type of compassion and understanding of the person, no matter what they believe. I'll let you continue that conversation.
Well, I don't know. It does matter what they believe, right? In that, so for example, like you couldn't. There's certain therapeutic practices that you can't utilize with everybody, right? So, example, like, so what you're saying, like, you could not ever apply that type of therapy with someone that's in addiction, right?
Hmm.
Because in addiction,
That's
you
an
want to kind of,
interesting point. That's a
I'm
good
sorry,
point too. That's an interesting and good point. You can't affirm something that's going to be detrimental to a person.
right, right. Because a person in addiction will always try to justify, their behavior, why they're doing what they're doing. You can't affirm that. That's not helpful.
Hmm. Yes, sir. Like if a person says, um, "I believe that God is an ant," um, to some extent, you have to um, support, not support. What is the word? They use the word affirm on alignment. In order to understand this person, you have to suspend some type of belief just in order to be able to reach them mentally. I think that's the purpose of the practice in good faith.
No, 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 bro. That's not what you want to do. I think where you're trying to go is a person can be delusional in their thought, and sometimes you might not want to dispute their delusion, right? Depending on what that delusion is, right? So a person might really believe that um um something is gonna happen, or that they are somebody, or X, Y, and Z. But you know that it's a delusional thought. So you might not want to try to harm them in saying, "Oh, you're an idiot." That's not reality,
You
right?
fucking fool.
So you might not want to approach it like that. It's not, but you don't have to affirm that at the same time. You just don't have to confront them, on their delusion. You can try to support them in a positive way without confronting them, right? So it depends on the person, and it depends on the situation, right? So if someone is having a psychological um, breakdown, right? So let's say a person is decompensating and they're saying, "Somebody's in here, somebody's trying to do something to me," right? You can support them and saying, "I understand," right? I understand that you believe that. I understand that you see that. I understand that you feel this way. But let's do this. Let me help you with this, right? And that's not disputing their delusion at that time, because they might be having a crisis, right? So you just want to be supportive of them in that crisis, right? While they're feeling that way. So you can support them through that crisis as they get through it, because you know that it's a temporary situation, right? And so you support them to help them calm down as they go through that, because it's a process where they're going to go through that and then come out of it, and you just be supportive of them through that process. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, because it's the purpose of the help that you're trying to extend to them, right?
Well, yeah. So what's gonna you don't want to be confrontational with them, right? So a person
Right.
who's not an expert doesn't know how to do that. They're just listening to this person saying, "Somebody's trying to kill me," or "You're trying to kill me," and you. But if you approach it saying, "Man, nobody trying to kill you, ain't nobody trying to do X, Y, and Z," then you and that person is not going to be able to connect with you, right? And
Hmm.
so a person who's not in that reality at that time with them is not going to professionally know how to connect with them. And so what I'm saying is a trained professional will know how to connect with them during that crisis. So you go to someone's house, you get a phone call, someone is having a crisis, they feel like their mom or their dad trying to kill them, you know, their brother or whatever, somebody's trying to get in the house, you know, to the untrained person, that person looks very crazy. Nobody's trying to hurt them. Look, you need to shut up, sit down, X, Y, Z, right? Because that's just what you know. But to a trained professional, they're not going to approach that situation that way, right? And they're going to want to understand that this person is having, you know, um, maybe a homicidal, suicidal, delusional, you know, situation right now, and you know, you need to help them decompensate during that situation, right? And so you're gonna kind of try to meet that person where they are.
That's a good point. Meeting the person where they are. Back to the Amber Geiger and brother of the victim. I'm going to get those names after I edit the podcast. Um, so I think it's important to mention who passed away and why, especially with talking about Black mental health and race. Um, but it's also important to, is there, I know you were kind of harsh on the come out with your reaction to how the brother wanted to hug the lady and thought that she should be forgiven.
Well, I wasn't
Is
trying to be
there,
harsh, and I was just stating
understood,
what.
because I feel the same passion that you did about it.
Well, and again, you, I was not trying to be therapeutic in my response to that. There's a different
Right,
therapeutic
right,
response to that. I was just not trying to
right,
be therapeutic with that, and his behavior was remnants of what Malcolm talked about when he talked about the field Negro and the house Negro, and that's and while you know anybody may disagree, which is fine, that's not what was happening. He just happened to be a loving, caring person. That's fine. That you see it, that a person might see it that way. I can see how someone saw it that way, but I can see how someone else will see it completely different.
right. And so when I mentioned the state of Israel, it's two schools of thought that are prominent. One would believe that they have the right to do whatever it takes to eradicate any threat. And there's the school of thought that believes that they're going overboard and they lack compassion for the people that they're going after, and they're just killing indiscriminately. So those two schools of thought become a part of your belief system and part of your identity. Um, so some person could say, I'm this, and because I'm this is what I believe, or I'm that, and because of what I believe, this is what I'll do. Um, I was hoping that we get when we say we're affirming someone, that we, despite our personal convictions, strongly held beliefs, that we can affirm who another person is, even if we don't necessarily agree with them. Um, I think the purpose of tonight's discussion is to explore those identities, those P. Diddy's, those Trumps, those Netanyahu's, um, or anybody else that um, not only that we are made aware of in social media or journalism, but people that just ordinarily walk the street. I wanted to know what this person was thinking to want to hug the person accused of killing his brother. It was an exceptional show of compassion for some, and an instance mm, of some greater um, sickness that we have as Black people, to always forgive those who continuously and maliciously kill us with no thought, no second thought about killing us, and then changing their mind afterwards. It's the thought that initially made them kill us that we need to remember and
Well,
never forget, or we become, as Malcolm say, the house nigga or the field nigga.
well, look, it's not that deep to me, right? It's really kind of simple, right? If you talk to the average white person about O.J. Simpson, they probably have the most disdain, um, hate, and animosity for O.J. Simpson, in the world, right? There's no middle ground. There's no trying to understand, no compassion about what he was going through, what he felt. I don't care if she cheated or not cheated or whatever. Nobody cares, right? You talk to the average white person, they hate OJ, hate him, right? I guarantee you're probably not going to meet a Holocaust survivor or the offspring of a Holocaust survivor that, you know, um, that survived, or parents or grandparents or whoever that died during the Holocaust, and they have some sympathy, you know, for Hitler or the Hitler kind, right? So it's not. I'm not trying to have a philosophical or deep conversation about why this guy decided he wanted to hug the person who killed his brother. I don't know what that was about. I don't really care, but I'm just saying, to me, it just speaks to a certain mentality. And I, I don't agree or disagree with anybody who feels anything different. You know, Maybe he's the most loving person in the world. That's fine. And that's what he chose to do. That's just what he chose to do. I'm just saying that, when it comes to black people, they're particularly compassionate, loving, understanding, forgiving, you know, and which speaks volumes to, um, why black folks don't feel the need to riot because of what happened with slavery, or be on some type of get back because of what happened, with slavery. It's kind of not in their nature. But black people just unique in that way. Maybe he's one of those black folks, right? But it just um, it just speaks volumes to Malcolm's perspective about those type of black folks.
Indeed. You're listening to Black Mental Health and Race. The person that was killed by Amber Geiger is Botham Jean, or Jean. I believe he was like a Haitian guy. It sounds like a Haitian type of name. The other person that I wanted to mention, another white woman, and speaking of white women having compassion for black people, there was the case of, what is this person's name? She killed her boyfriend, Courtney Clenny, on an OnlyFans model, very popular OnlyFans model, Courtney Clenny. And her boyfriend's name was Christian Obuselli. Obumseli. That sounds like an African name. I don't want to get into stereotypes. She stabbed her boyfriend to death. In a case of domestic violence, they were constantly arguing, and she had the habit of hitting when they were arguing, and he was the passive person. I don't think he was passive in public, but towards the girl he supposedly loved, he wouldn't hit her back. He would just shield himself with his shoulder or grab her hands to try to prevent her from hitting. So one day, in April 2022, that fateful day, um, early in the morning, the police were called to their residence, and she was full of blood, Courtney Clenny, and her boyfriend was also full of blood from the stab wound she received from misclaimed. Um, he died of his wounds, and she went on trial. And she also, if I'm not mistaken, was found guilty of those crimes. Um, and she's now going through sentencing, or has gone through sentencing. Um, I think she's still in the process of sentencing. I'm not sure, but I'll double check it when I go back. Now, there is this Dr. Moore. You still with me?
Yep.
There's this thing that a lot of people are showing the inhumanity of black men and women as an excuse for our um, need to make America great again. And that type of hyperbole or um, vitriol that says that we are the animals that need to be put back in check. As these allegations of crime getting worse in New York under this black mayor. There is this case of a black woman who killed her son. I think this is also in Texas. And I think she said that she was being followed by the Nassau, not Nassau. Nassau would be a location. NASA, which is the acronym for NASA, which is the space program. She was being followed by NASA officers, and that's why she killed her son. The judge in that case recommended that this black woman receive free counsel until she can get counsel of her own, legal counsel of her own. But he also recommended that she be given a psych eval because she stated this was confidence and that she was going to represent herself legally because she was the only person that would understand who she was. That became her identity for killing her son and her defense for killing her 7-year-old son. Given the last few things I've described, I'll let you continue the conversation how you'd like.
I don't know how to continue that, unless you want me to respond to what you just said.
Yes, sir. And that would be fine.
I almost want to say this in a very different way, but
you have to keep your professionalism, brother.
but I mean,
you
I
have
don't
to
know.
be in alignment with people.
But trust me, I know how to. I'm very aware how to be professional.
I'm looking, brother.
I just really don't.
Alignment, brother.
I just really don't know how to entertain what you just said.
That's a good word for it, entertain.
I mean, because you're trying to. It sounds like to me, you're trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense, right? And so, you know, and there's a saying that says, a person who represents themselves in court had a fool for
a client. Yes, sir.
So I nothing about what you said made sense to me, right? And so unless a person believes in the Illuminati and believes in, all this other stuff, I mean, to them, then that makes sense. But to me, I don't know where I would go with that, right? Because you kill your kid. That's not normal, right? And to justify killing your kid and to say this is happening and that is happening, I don't want to trivialize the seriousness of that. And I don't want to um, not um, be participatory in the question, um, in this particular question that you're asking me. But it just doesn't make sense on any level to me. From a psychological, not psychological, from a normal, not normal, from any perspective in the world to me. Anything about what this person is thinking, doing, none of that is logical. And I think that person, you know, needs more than a psych eval, needs more than a paid, therapy session or whatever. Clearly, this person has, some really, really severe mental issues that need to be addressed. And, and it's not anything to be taken lightly because those are very, very um, um, serious situations. And to play that down or to act like, this person, you know, did something that might be real about what this person is thinking or feeling, I think would be to trivialize the seriousness of their mental health.
What about the Courtney Clenny case where she killed her black boyfriend, a white woman, popular youth OnlyFans model, Courtney Clenny, stabbed her boyfriend to death in a domestic violence dispute.
Yeah, I don't know enough about that case, but just from and I don't know if you're asking me psychological questions or you're asking me general questions or you're
I'm
asking me
trying
to
to keep it
respond from
on the belief and the affirming, not just affirming CBT stuff, just affirming in general, aligning with a person that we may not necessarily want to align
but
with,
but I want
like
you
in
to
the
kind of
case
move.
of a Trump.
Yeah, but I want you to kind of move away from that because if you stay on because I don't work from that therapeutic model.
Not from a therapeutic standpoint, just understanding as a layperson, the person that may be your opposition, understanding the person that you may not be in agreement with as a layperson.
Well,
Just general people that you would meet on the street.
right. So as a layperson, I would be careful about trying to align with people like that, right? Because that sounds like a dangerous place to be, or a dangerous place to try to be, right? If there's a person that because none of what you're saying is like not serious, right? These things are very serious. So if there's a person that is going to that extreme where they're murdering people, I don't want to try to align with that, right? There's I don't see the beneficial reward in that, right?
Which is what I was saying about the first person we mentioned. It wasn't murder, but it was
the one
a
that
serious crime.
The one that killed her boyfriend?
No, I'm talking about the investigation of P. Diddy. It's just the seriousness of the crimes that makes me, even though I have a lot of respect for him, just to want to distance myself from him and not understand.
Well, I think we want to be careful, right? If we're going to be fans of people and like people, about because here's what I'm careful of, or what I try to be careful of, is being in love with someone that's not in love with me. I understand that people are Beyonce fans and all this other stuff, right? and they're fans of these people, right? But are these people fans of the fans, right? And so when you have such an attachment to somebody who may not have such an attachment to you, you know, I think, that's something to just be kind of self-aware of, right? And that you're such a follower, of people, right? Without any healthy boundaries. I think that's kind of scary, right? To feel like you're really connected to this person. And this person has no real connection to you, right? And so you're so vested in these people and you feel like, well, if I disconnect myself with this person, like that person is really
Then
going
I
to
won't
feel,
be myself.
or even if you won't be yourself, but that this person is going to feel that. They're not. They don't know you.
Nor
They,
do
they
they care.
right. And a lot of these people have people managing their fan page. They don't manage the fan page. So the fact that you feel like you are that vested, I don't know. That's interesting to me because I don't, you know, when people come to me and they say things like, they're feeling a high level of anxiety or depression, and I start to ask them, well, okay, tell me a little bit about who you are, how you spend your day, blah, 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 how much time you spend on social media, and one of the first things I start to say to them is, hey, you might want to cut back on social media. Or let's try cutting back on social media. Because, I mean, and there are people that spend their days and nights and hours arguing with people on social media. They don't know. I mean, it's like a real battle. It's like a real something for them. And you realize arguing and debating and disagreeing and having these high level of emotions of people over the internet.
Your thoughts don't make them shit.
Bro, when you get off the phone, you don't know them. They live in another country. They live in another state. You know what I'm saying? They don't. You're not going to see them. You know, bro, there's a level of anxiety and stress that you give yourself that doesn't make any sense.
Unduly.
So I I don't know. I just don't. Bro, I don't know. You wanted to start this off by talking about um obsession with things and um that becoming your identity. That's a scary place to be, right? Um, because the Bible says, "As a man thinketh, so is he." Right? And so,
Amen.
if you are obsessing in any way, form, or fashion, that's a problem, right? It's a problem. It's not
And you don't
mentally.
see it.
Whether you see it or you don't see it is a problem. You're spending energy and time obsessing about something. I don't care what it is. I mean, if it's your kids, if it's your relationship, if it's your job, too much of anything is bad for you. And so the fact that you can acknowledge that you are obsessing over it, that's a problem. And you need to set clear boundaries for yourself in that situation.
Lastly, brother, I want to talk about obsession with love. I see people in my daily walk of life and on social media obsessing about their hurt and their pain because they loved someone. They have dedicated their lives to healing. And my belief is that you're never going to heal because that becomes the thing that you are. It becomes your identity to heal. I think it's best to not try to forget the pain that you suffered in love, but rather just make that only one aspect of your life. Don't make it the identity that you become. You have to get beyond it. I hope that you'd speak to that as a person as we come
Well,
to a close on another episode.
well, I think I just want to ask some points of clarity. My first point is you say you run across people who um, are obsessed with love.
Their obsession with love became their pain. So I'm talking about the aftermath of love. You trusted this person so much, and they wind up stabbing you in the back, literally or figuratively, as in the cases of this Courtney Clenny person. Or somehow they betrayed you. You found out that about their infidelity, and now you're so obsessed that you can't think about nothing else. You can't go on with your life without mentioning this person or this incident. You may even have the children of the person to whom has caused you so much pain. So you have no other choice but to mention this person's name. How do you deal with that? And how do you move beyond it? Am I right that you have to just roll that up as one aspect of your life and not the entirety of your life? And you have to get beyond the healing to doing work. And that work is the self-improvement. Always going to be that.
Well, I'll be honest with you, bro. Everything that you just described to me doesn't sound like love at all, and I think it sounds like it's the misconception of. It sounds like it's the misconception of love, of where they went wrong and what they are obsessed with. They aren't obsessed with love. They are obsessed with their lack of understanding of what love is, and their lack of understanding of what love is what allows them to obsess. Because love is there's nothing obsessive about love. You know, love is free, and so the opposite of love is obsessing over something. That's not loving at all, right? And so they have a misunderstanding, a misconception about what love is, and so their misunderstanding about what love is what has put them in this dysfunctional thinking about love and this dysfunctional lifestyle about love. So they never really knew love. They knew a dysfunction of love that they described as love. And because they never knew love, it's that dysfunction of love that they're living and not understanding why love isn't manifesting in the way that love should manifest, because they don't know how to really manifest love. Because there's nothing that what you have said to me that is the manifestation of love at all. And it would only it would only yield them results of dysfunction and hurt and pain.
Yes, sir.
So I think that you have to first know love before you try to be in love or to give love, and not the idea of what you think love is. So
And what
those
about
people
the
that
pain aspect?
well, the pain aspect is associated with what they identify as love, and that's why they have pain.
That's very deep, brother. That is something that I didn't even think of.
Right, because they think that their love or the result of their love has caused them pain, but it was never love. And that's why they're so pain in the way that they are. Because they're associating that with love. But it was never love. They never got love. They never gave love. They never received love. So what they were engaging in was never love in the first place.
I think there's a popular saying, love doesn't hurt.
Well,
That's not love. Meaning that's not love. So if there's something that's hurting you that becomes your obsession to heal from, that wasn't love in the first place.
well, it depends on how you're seeing hurt, right? Because
You're obsessed with the hurt.
Well, so for example, let's use a scenario, right? You want to learn basketball, you want to learn football, right? You love it, but sometimes it's kind of painful, right? In the practice, in the hard work, in the game. That's a different type of love, right? And there's a different type of results that's going to give you, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, but if you're in a relationship and the relationship that you identify as love is causing you physical and psychological, mental hurt, then the way that you're understanding love may not be really love, right? And so you have to think about where your source of love, your understanding of love is coming from. Do you have a healthy place of where love comes from? Do you really know what love is, right? And what's that source of how you are identifying and understanding love? Because what you may think is love may not actually be love, right? So, and that's where I think you have to go back and look at the source of your information, right? And so that's why, when you get into academia will say, hold up, there needs to be a credible source. That needs to be a scholarly source. You can't put this, in a research paper. You can't put this in an academic research paper because it's not scholarly. It's not peer reviewed, right? It has to come from a credible source, right? It just can't be your opinion. If it's just your opinion, then it doesn't carry any weight, right? So let's look at where your opinion is coming from, because it might be coming from the barbershop, right? It might be coming from, a dysfunctional family member. It might be coming from niggas that you grew up with on the corner. That's not a credible source in this academic world, right? So in this academic world, no, you got to have a scholarly source. It's got to be peer reviewed. And let's understand what peer review means. And let's understand what, scholarly means. Don't tell me you Google something. Google's not going to work over here. You can't put this in your paper and expect for it to be respected or respect for it to be, a scholarship source or a scholarship paper, because that's not. Anybody can Google. That's nothing, right? So when you tell me, when you talk to me about love, where is your understanding and where is your foundation of love, right? Let me see what you saw and what you understand about love, right? Because I know people that think, and I know I grew up, and I used to think love is Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I used to think, no, I got to put a woman through some shit, in order for me to know that she loves me, right? So I'm going to put her through the trenches. What I didn't understand, but that's how I grew up, right? That's what I saw. I believe that I had to put a woman through something in order for me to know that I loved her or that she loved me, right? What I later began to understand is I could put you through a whole lot of shit and you can prove that you love me. What I didn't understand is how I jaded you through the process. So now you love me, but you love me through a jaded process. And you love me, but you hate me at the same time. Because you love me because you stayed, but you hate me for what I put you through. And I didn't understand that. Right? And so, and my hood mentality didn't teach me that. So once in my head, I believe, oh, she loved me because she stayed through with me through thick and thin. But I didn't understand how I hurt her while she stayed through that with me. Right? So I understood love, but I understood love from a very problematic process, from a very problematic place. Right? But today, you know, I see that differently. Right? So I would say to a person who's thinking about falling in love, who's thinking about being in a relationship, I would say, choose wise. Choose wise. Right? I would say to them, respect that person and like that person first. Right? Because when you're going through your turmoil, that even through that you say, I still like who this person is. I still like this person as a person. I still respect this person as a person. Right? Because what happens when that doesn't happen is you could like a person, you might even respect that person. But if you pity that person while you like them and while you think you respect them, you will never really respect them because you pity them.
I would say to the family of Christian Obumseli, murdered by one day you may get to the point where you can hug the murderer. Maybe one day you don't. What I do know is that you have to create distance between the people that you love and the things that they do. I think we talked about that earlier with Diddy. And you have to be able to separate the two. And you have to understand that failure to do so could be so detrimental, it can cause your death unduly. Getting to know a person is some of the things that in that initial meeting is what we listed here: facial features, body language, voice, handshake. All of that doesn't really tell you what a person is. All of the confessions of love don't really tell you what a person is capable of. So you have to know the person so well that you don't become obsessed with them and you don't allow them to become the only memories that you can bring up. And I hopefully tried to explain what tonight's conversation was about, not necessarily taking sides, but creating safe distances between you and the things that you're obsessed with. On that note, Dr. Moore, I'm going to give you the last word. Take us home, brother.
Yeah, bro. I don't know. I think as a man, think it's so easy. You know, so it's a good thing and a bad thing, depending on how self-aware you are. If you are not, conscious, if you're not self-aware and you're seeing yourself as this or as that, and you're not sure why you're doing this or why you're doing that, and if you're doing it for other people, I think there's loyalty to a fault, right? You become loyal to things, situation, to people, um, and it becomes more of a hindrance and more of a hurt than a help. And so I think that you just want to be mindful of that. Um, so be careful what you obsess about. Be careful what you spend your time with and in, because at the end of the day, whether you're paying attention to it or not, I think, I know that wherever you spend your time, that is a manifestation of who you are, and it's the manifestation of what you're going to be. So you can say you want to be a journalist, you can say you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, you want to be a YouTuber, you want to be X, Y, and Z. But if you're spending the majority of your time doing something else, then that's really going to be the manifestation of who and what you are. I think you and I started this conversation off, and I was saying, and I was quoting someone, and he was saying the difference in what you know and what you believe, right?
Yes, sir.
And he said that if you believe, it means you don't really know, right? And if you know, you don't really believe, right? And so to bring that home and to make it more clear, one of the examples he used was, he said, do you know or do you believe in who your parents are, right? And if you know your mom and dad, you don't have to believe your mom and dad, right? Because you know that. And then he asked the question, he said, do you know God or do you know Jesus? Or do you believe in God and do you believe in Jesus? And there's a distinct difference in knowing who your mom and dad is and who you believe in they are, right? And do you know Jesus or God, or do you believe in Jesus or God? And it's up to you to make that decision, right? But I think when you do the math, when you do the rationale, if you try to compare your understanding and your knowing of who your parents are and who Jesus and God is to you, I think you got to know that there's a difference. Because there's a distinct difference in you knowing them and you living with them than you knowing and believing what you know is something else.
Now, in tonight's podcast with a riddle, my brother, riddle me this, black man. Do you know who Diddy is? Do you know who Trump is? Do you know who Netanyahu is? Do you know this person that you are with? Because to know them is to know what they'll do. So I don't think we pass judgment on anybody tonight, but just know the person that you know and why you're obsessed with them. Brother, I'd like to keep our conversation on the air. We usually hang up the phone here because let me tell the computer to end program, start a new topic because I couldn't get away with tonight. Two things that bother me when we talk about black militancy, the mental state of the black man, what he should be thinking about. What's your take on all of these billionaires, black billionaires, um, being dismantled one at a time? From give you the examples of Russell Simmons, Kanye West, P Diddy, Jay Z, and they're all about to fall like a bowling ball striking a set of pins, brother. What's going on?
I don't know any of them. I don't know that they're about
Or
to
do you
fall,
care?
and I could give two rats ass. I mean,
Now, brother, we're talking about alignment.
I'm not in a bro. Those people aren't in alignment with me, bro. It doesn't make sense. You know, how I'm in alignment with somebody that doesn't know me.
Yes, sir.
You know, I'm not getting ready to sit here and act like I can talk intelligently about Diddy or Jay-Z or what's going on with them. I have no idea. I'm not on the same level with them. I ain't never met these people. You know, that's broke. I mean, that's broke people conversation. Broke people have conversations about people who have money. People who have money don't have broke people conversation. Is that supposed to make me feel intelligent to sit here and talk about billionaires and millionaires?
Yes, sir. Our big word for tonight, brother, is equivocation. That means the use or ambiguous language to conceal the truth or to avoid committing oneself prevarication. Hmm. That was kind of puzzling. I don't know if equivocation, the fallacy of equivocation occurs when a key term or phrase in an argument is used in an ambiguous way, with one meaning in one portion of the argument and then another meaning in another portion of the argument. Example given, I have the right to watch the real world. Therefore, it's right for me to watch the show. Every week I try to give a new example. Rest in peace to Louis Gossett Jr. This man was born in New York, brother. I didn't even realize that. I think up in the Bronx. He passed away. A great actor. You'll remember him from such movies as Officer and a Gentleman. That was one of the big movies after he became famous that most people will remember him for. Rest in peace to that brother. We can't go anywhere, brother, without talking about your girl, Candace Owens. I would be remiss in my duties, brother, if I did not explain the equivocation of her plight and why we must support her now, brother. Your thoughts on her being fired by Ben Shapiro?
I don't know if this is a joke or I don't know.
You can take it however you want it, brother. You can take it or leave it alone. All I do is pitch the softballs. You can knock them out of the park.
Okay. I don't care one way or the other about Candace Owens being fired.
I don't give a
This is
fuck.
this is much I don't care about her being hired. I don't think Candace Owens does anything for the Black community. I don't think she does anything for me.
You're not letting her back in, brother?
Back into what?
The Black community, brother. She's not allowed at the cookouts out here.
Well,
No longer allowed to come to the cookouts.
bro, when when did Candace Owens want to come to a black cookout?
Now, brother, I need
when
you
was
to
she
think.
there?
Brother, I need you to think about this without emotion, brother.
No, there's no emotion at all in what I'm saying. I don't. I mean, unless you trying to understand the question. I don't know that Candace Owens ever viewed herself as a sister, ever wanted to be a sister, in the black community. So I know, you've been facetious in terms of the cookout, but
Yes, sir.
Candace Owens she's married to a white man. She has, you know, she's been I mean she's been clear, how she feels about black folks and her position with Black America. So I except for the fact that, you feel like it might be relevant to bring up right now, but I don't really care. I don't think most of the black community knows who Candace Owens is. Um, and even if they do, I don't think they care about her being fired, hired. I mean, she's clearly an opportunist. So, you know, um, I think what will come is what will come for her. I think she's an opportunist, so I think she'll bounce back in the way that she needs to bounce back.
I agree, brother. If you have an obsession with her, that will become your identity. um, it's funny. I just started seeing her back in the black media platforms, like the interview with Charlemagne the God and the interview with Joe Budden. Uh, those are platforms that she would not necessarily want to affiliate with when she was in the Dirty Wire organization with Ben Shapiro. Um, she wouldn't want to align herself with people of that ilk. But now that she's fired, it seems like these platforms, not that she needs the money, she's married to a billionaire white guy. She doesn't need the money, but to see her trying to reach out to these different platforms may be, as you said, an opportunist move, a strategic move by an opportunist. Um, it remains to be seen what comes of it, and fate is now in her hands. Will she be true to herself or true to the constituency of the black community?
Bro, that's
Interesting.
it's not, and it's almost insulting, bro, to say whether or not she would be true to the black community. She doesn't identify.
She has never
know,
been. Well, wait a
right?
minute.
So
Now she did have the when she was a liberal, she did sue some company for racism and won the case, but now she says racism doesn't exist.
right, but so
That's
so yeah,
opportunity.
right. So what I'm saying is to give her a platform, or to talk about her, it's not helpful, right? Because
Right.
you know to give her valid, validity, to talk about her, to give her name, more, credibility, you know, um, it's not helpful. I don't see the benefit in that. You know, she is clearly not someone that cares about anything outside of herself. So, you just want to be very careful about, you know, giving people airspace in places that um, you know, she probably doesn't need to be. you know, I purposely didn't even watch on the Breakfast Club because I didn't want to give it that airtime because I already know, you know, she was there for an opportunity. I already know that she, was there for recognition and things like that. So, I just don't want to be a puppet, in that.
Mm. Yes, sir.
You
Understood,
know,
brother.
so when Candace Owens goes to the black community and starts to feed the poor and build public housing and doing stuff
Mm.
like that, then I'll be willing to entertain a conversation, right? But if you're just telling me, she's going on Joe Button, the Breakfast Club, man, how does that benefit the black community? All it does is benefit her
Not
platform,
at
you know,
all.
and 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 what she's trying to espouse. So, I think that's a waste of time. I think Candace Owens is a joke.
Mm. Yes, indeed, brother. I think that was all I had to cover. And I appreciate you taking the time out to be on another episode of Black Mental Health and Race, brother. Um, um, I'll talk to you off air, but I'd like to say that our audience members may be the smartest people on earth. I want to thank the 9 consistent listeners that have come on board this small little mothership, little baby plane. Speaking of the baby plane, brother, I got through half of Minister Farrakhan's speech. I'm going to listen to the other half. But he was accusing the state of Israel of war crimes. And it's funny that now we see that even Biden, who's taking a strong support of the state of Israel, whatever sanction that was given for him to just indiscriminately kill people, I don't know, even the politicians in Israel that are part of Netanyahu's cabinet are talking this killer stuff, and nobody seems to think that 200 hostages is equivalent to the suffering and senseless deaths of thousands of people, except the Netanyahu cabinet. I don't understand how that is not a war crime and how we have been so lenient up until now in terms of an official policy that this is not even a war. A war would be a fight between two equivalent parties. This is just a destruction of people, no matter what their affiliation to Hamas is. You don't care. You just killing anybody that's in Gaza. It's a shame to see that, and our journalism here has not been powerful enough to speak truth to power against it.
Well, I don't think that our journalism here is designed to do that. So I think that's
That is correct, sir. Indeed. Well, brother, I think we'll end this podcast. Thank you to the listeners, and thank you to anything that we said. Get to know the people that you say that you trust, that you say that are your family or your friends or your acquaintances or your war buddies. You may not know them as well as you think. and it may need be a need for some distance, not only in the physical, but in the mental. Last word, brother.
Peace to God.
Peace to the universe. Orline, brother, Orline.
Oh, my people, I want you to understand and